How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to episode 5 of Pirates Corner. I'm Ryan Miller here with Josh Ruga again on a shorter episode right before we leave for spring training. We are currently recording this on Saturday and we leave on Wednesday, so we'll be down there in no time. I just wanted to start off the episode with some information. So from Wednesday the 20th to Friday the 22nd, I believe, we're going to be at Pirate City watching the big league team hit, because position players' first workout is the second day that we're there, and also the pitchers pitch and full team workouts. Also, we are going to probably want to see a minor league game at some point while we're down there, maybe a AAA, maybe a AA game. So after that, the 23rd and 24th, we are going to be in Clearwater. We're going to see the first spring training game of the year. Then the 24th, that Sunday, we are going to see Pirates at Marlins, or Marlins at Pirates at Lecom Park. And we are also going to be going down to Fort Myers to see the Pirates in Fort Myers versus the Twins on Tuesday. Monday's the day that we're going to try to see a minor league game at somebody's camp. Maybe if the AAA team is playing a game at the Orioles camp or something, we could drive down and see another complex. It's only about 15 minutes down the road. But today we have kind of a shorter episode. We're just going to talk about some non-roster invite transactions, the rotation, the fifth spot in the rotation, Steven Brault and Nick Burdi. So I'll go ahead and start off. I'm going to read off this short list of players that have been signed to minor league deals with non-roster invites. So the first is infielder Nick Franklin, then Melky Cabrera, Francisco Liriano, Vicente Campos, who did not get a non-roster invite. He will be at AAA camp. Right-handed pitcher Brandon Maurer, and outfielder J.B. Shuck. So I'm going to go ahead and start off with my favorite name on this list, and that is Francisco Liriano. We basically came out of nowhere to sign him. I did not think that the Pirates would go after another left-handed pitcher, even though there's a little bit of a need there. I didn't think that they would go out and get somebody, and Liriano's name did not pop up on anybody's list.
Yeah, so what I got on this is Liriano is a very interesting name to bring back in now that he's like in his mid-30s. Still has that good slider. The Pirates had him using the fastball a little bit more and strategically mixing that in to make him a more complete pitcher. He was brought in with the primary purpose being to compete for a bullpen role. Some of the Pirates starters, they like him. They want to see him win the fifth starter's job. But he'll be given an opportunity at that. But that's a pretty big competition, as we'll get into a little bit later. My favorite name on this list is Nick Franklin, and the reason being, this guy's a former top prospect. Can we bring up his name here?
I'll bring up his name. Yeah, Nick Franklin's another name. When I saw him, I recognized his name. So I'll go to MILB.
Yeah. Nick Franklin plays middle infield. He can play third base, and the key that we're looking at here is he's only 27 years old. So if you look at what he's done in the big leagues, it's been next to nothing at this point. But sometimes with these former top prospects, you'll see him when they get into the athletic prime athletic years of their career. They'll kind of take off, and they'll actually make a career out of what was like bust status as a prospect. So this is a guy, he can play shortstop, he can play second base, he can play some third base. So he's got the throwing arm, he's got a little bit of range up the middle, and if his bat ends up playing the way it was projected as a prospect, like he has like a late prime or a late breakout, then this could be like a steal for the Pirates. Um, no sense in holding our breath waiting for this guy to take off, but it's an interesting signing. Somebody to watch in spring training.
Low risk.
Yeah,
Well.
if he's hitting, then he'll have a chance at a roster spot either on the bench, or hey, maybe he earns the starting shortstop role. That's like probably outside the realm of possibility, but like there's a very slight chance that he just takes off in spring training and does that. I don't expect that to happen. If he ends up starting games at shortstop for the Pirates this season, it would probably be a scenario where he makes the roster out of spring training in a bench role. Pablo Reyes and Kevin Newman all go to AAA because they have options. And Franklin ends up just he hits every pinch hit appearance. He hits on the days he starts, and then he's looking good in the field at short. So that would be the one scenario. It's a uphill climb for him at this point, but still an interesting name to watch. And we'll get to see him a few times in spring training. I imagine he'll be out there quite a bit.
Yeah, they usually like to throw in some of the non-roster invites, lesser-known guys, to start out spring training. And that's another thing, too. Most of the pitchers only pitch, an inning to start out?
Yeah,
so we're gonna see we're gonna see a lot of guys cycle through. Another name that I like on this list is Melky Cabrera. Kind of tailing off of that, Polanco looks like he's ready. He's hitting and fielding
and
throwing, and he's doing all baseball activity. So we could see him on opening day because it sure looks like he's healing pretty good. But Melky Cabrera is a guy who can compete for that 4th or 5th outfield spot. I don't know if the Pirates want to carry 5 outfielders or if they carry 4 and maybe like a Pablo Reyes. But Melky, he's hit pretty good in the major leagues for the past couple of years. Last year, he hit 280 in about 75 games, I believe. The year before that, he appeared in 120 games and hit 285. So there's some more potential there, maybe. He's probably on the downhill decline
the
now.
downside of his career.
Yeah, because he's getting up there in age, and he used to be a household name, but now he still has a little bit of a bat, but I'll like to see what he does in spring training. I don't know if he'll make the team. He might start at AAA.
Yeah.
Another guy who's an outfielder that we signed was J.B. Shuck, which quickly he isn't really that much.
He's not going to factor in.
No, he's not. He's not
probably going to be an organizational player at AAA this year. I got something on Melky Cabrera. He's going to be heavily evaluated defensively this spring training by the Pirates. They're going to look at metrics in spring training on this guy because this guy's competing for a roster spot. They can at the end of spring training say, hey, we like the bat, but you don't provide us with enough defense to keep you on our bench, justify keeping you around. So Melky Cabrera's defense has fallen off significantly in right field and left field the past 2 to 3 years. He used to be a guy, even though he has a pretty thick body, he used to be a guy who had the speed and know-how to defend center field, adequately, not above average. And he was above average, or at least solid on the corners, right and left field.
Yeah.
The Pirates are going to want to see that he's in shape, he's ready to go. They're going to want to see that speed isn't an issue, getting to balls in right field, and he probably won't play any left field unless it's just a Sunday lineup if he happens to make the team. Because if you're just thinking about upside from an offensive perspective and lack of defensive ability, Jose Osuna gives you that essentially. He's probably never going to play left field at PNC, but he's good enough to play a little bit of right field at PNC Park.
Yeah, kind of short right field.
Yeah.
You don't have to run too far, but
So
Ozuna's bat though, it's there, and
really hasn't broken out at the big league
no,
level
not
yet.
the big league level at all. I know that he definitely has a shot to make the roster, but do you see him making the roster in the end?
Well, it pretty much comes down to this is where it gets really interesting, and that's why these non-roster invitees are getting coverage on our podcast, is because these guys are all on a similar level, like Nick Franklin versus Pablo Reyes. Upside with both. Pablo Reyes is younger, of course, and like those are the guys, interesting names competing for bench roles with the Pirates. We've seen in Venezuela, in AAA, what Jose Osuna can do at the plate. So he's facing some pretty significant competition for reserve outfield role for Melky Cabrera now. So that's what we're looking at, because the Pirates, if they don't put Polanco on the disabled list from day one, then you're looking at a situation where Chisenhall is your fourth outfielder.
Yeah.
And that's a really good player to have as a fourth outfielder. Of course, Chisenhall has the versatility to play third base, second base as well, and that makes him a great fit for the team. For Osuna, it's really right field he's trying to get better at. First base is his only adequate defensive position, and he can passable defensively
nothing
at third
special,
base.
but
At third base,
yeah.
So, as far as the rest of these moves go, we touched on JB Shuck. Vicente Campos is
a AAA player.
He's probably going to AAA, but this guy's a guy with high upside, and he had I believe it was 35 innings scoreless streak
In winter ball, correct?
Yeah, in winter ball before the Pirates signed him. So this is a high upside reliever, but the Pirates seem to be collecting them. We haven't seen Jesus Lorenzo at the major league level yet, and another guy we're going to discuss today, Nick Birdie. These guys are going to be in that competition, kind of pushing Vicente Campos down the depth chart, pretty much relegating him to a AAA role to start the season, because the Pirates have so much competition to replace that Edgar Santana role in the bullpen.
And another guy who does it as well is Brandon Maurer, our next name.
Yeah.
He spent the full season, I believe, last year in the KC Royals bullpen.
He wasn't good.
No, he was not good. 7 ERA, above 7, I believe. Not good. But, again, on-roster invite, a guy who may be able to come in here and prove that he should continue to be on a big league roster, or AAA arm. It's kind of just... With these non-roster invites, I was explaining this to my dad the other day. These guys are low risk, because if they're all minor league deals, if they spend the season at AAA, they spend the season at AAA. If you release them, you release them. It's nothing huge. So Brandon Maurer, he could possibly come up and do something. He could possibly stay in AAA all year, or maybe when a pitcher gets hurt, he could come up, or as a 26th man on a doubleheader, whatever.
Yeah, he's pitched in a variety of roles throughout his big league career. Maurer is he's somewhat interesting player. It's pretty bland stuff based on what we saw out of the Kansas City Royals bullpen last year. Like, he looked very hittable. I don't know if that was him pitching through pain or something like that, because he hasn't always been terrible. He's had some...
I'll look him up right now and see exactly what he's done in the big leagues, at least. So last year we have a 7.76 ERA in 37 games. 2017, more of bad pitching, 68 games.
Yeah.
Let's see, 59 innings with a 6.52. The last year that he was relatively a good reliever was 2015 when he appeared in 53 games and had a 3 ERA. And before that, it was kind of 22 games, 6.3, and then in 2014, 38 games, 5.65 or 4.65. So high ERAs is a problem with him.
He's been in the big league since 2013, and that he broke in with Seattle. And with Seattle, he made 21 starts out of his 60 appearances through his first 2 seasons.
So he came up as a starting pitcher, probably a top prospect. I wonder where he was drafted.
Well,
Never mind. 23rd round.
Yeah, he wasn't a top prospect, but he came up initially as a starting pitcher, but was quickly relegated into that swing role where he was pitching out of the pen. Now in San Diego, his first season in San Diego, he was solid that year. And where's the strikeouts?
It's crazy
he's
how
never struck out a ton of batters other than year 2 in San Diego.
Yeah.
That was over. What's the innings count? 69 2/3. He struck out 72 batters. So he's never really blown anyone away, but he is a guy who generates ground balls.
Yeah. So a lot of different stats for this guy. I mean, the ground outs to air outs ratios. What are you pointing out?
His ground ball ratio last year, he was right around the 50% mark for a ground ball percentage, and when he's had his better seasons, like his best season in relief, he was right around the 50% mark as well. Last season was not a good year for him.
Opponents hit 323 off of him last year.
Yeah.
Which is not good. And the year before that, they hit 298, also not great.
He's never had a high walk rate outside of last year. Last year in 31 1/3 innings, he had 25 walks. Other than that, he's kept the walks under control. So that's what makes me think last year was kind of an outlier for him from the control standpoint. He is a sinker-slider guy, and the Pirates love that combination, especially in short relief. But ultimately, right now, he would probably be like 8th man in the pen from a depth chart standpoint.
Maybe a Ray Searage project.
Yeah.
A bit. Maybe try to get him back to that 2015 form that he had.
There's really not a lot that you're working with here, because it in San Diego in 2016, that's his best year from a strikeout standpoint, but his ground ball percentage fell off. So one way or the other, he's never found a way to be great. He had one solid season, and he's had a lot of mediocre seasons. So I think that's enough on Brandon Marr. But,
yeah. Also, he didn't spend the whole year in Kansas City's bullpen. He was optioned and then outrighted to AAA Omaha. So he was actually, I guess, designated for assignment, and then they just outrighted him to AAA and then purchased his contract again in mid-June. So an interesting bunch of non-roster invites for me. Other guys on this list, like Tyler Lyons, I know that Josh likes him. We got Roberto Gomez, which in my opinion, AAA. Elvis Escobar, Eduardo Vera, Brandon Waddle, Blake Wyman, Alex McRae,
all of these
Dario, AAA.
Oh, Dario Agrizal could factor into the bullpen look this spring, but the guy who I really think could take some people by surprise is Jesus Lorenzo, and that's because he shares a lot in common with Nick Burdi.
Yeah.
And if we want to just get to Nick Burdi now.
Yeah, we might as well just talk about Nick Burdi. And after that, I want to bring up another guy who they haven't made official yet, but reports already signed, Tom Kohler. So you can go ahead and...
Okay, so Nick Burdi, he's a tall pitcher out of the Minnesota Twins organization. Rule 5 draft pick from last year, and they they have to keep him on the roster for this year because of his status
weird
on the
circumstances too.
disabled list from last year. He was coming off of Tommy John surgery. He's got an electric arm. Like Jesus Lorenzo, he's also 6'3". Or is Lorenzo that
I
tall?
could check for you.
Nah,
Lorenzo is 6'2".
Okay.
Birdie is 6'3", so similar.
Yeah. Both are a little bit above average height. Not great height for pitchers, but still working with somewhat of a downward plane. Relatively big guys on the mound. And Birdie being 26 years old, we saw him for 2 innings last year, and it was kind of a couple of games.
It was bad, but you can't take 2 innings compared to anything.
It was a couple of games where he was in the game and it was already had gotten away, and he was just in a mop-up role.
Yeah, mop-up. That's the word that I'm trying to say. Yeah, mop-up role, just when we're getting beat, like we got beat by the Dodgers. What was that score, 18-1 or something? He'd be the guy who would come in. At least
he appeared, the game in particular that I remember seeing him in last year was against the Cardinals, a game that got away. But what I saw from him was a lot of 99 on the gun.
But he throws hard for sure.
He was bringing it right down the middle. Even though he was hitting bottom of the zone, it was kind of middle of the plate, and it was getting hit. I think one ball left the yard, and there was just a bunch of hits against him. So anyway, what he needs to do is probably hit his spots a little bit better. And I'm not going to dump on him for him pitching poorly in that was his 6th professional inning since being cleared medically to play.
Yeah, so, it was not a lot.
It may be his 10th, but one way or the other, it wasn't many innings of baseball before he was up in the big leagues getting that look in September.
He did a similar thing to to Jung Ho, which single A, double A, triple A majors. Kind of worked him back gradually. I have a video that I'll watch, but yeah. So Birdie, I mean, he throws hard. I want to see what the radar gun lights up at in this video. It doesn't say, but he sits high 90s.
Yeah, so it's an electric arm.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what works out with him, because I think that another option is sending him back to the Twins. I wouldn't like to see that happen. I think that we should keep him on the roster for 50 days and use him in roles, and maybe then send him to AAA if somebody's doing well down there that we want to bring up. But I don't think that we should send him back. I don't think that we should get rid of him. I think he has some upside.
Yeah, it's just a matter of days that they need to keep him on the roster, and he's now another off-season removed from the surgery. He's 26 years old. He's fully grown up, mature from a pitching standpoint. So it's just going to be a matter of him hitting spots now, and if he is able to do that, he's going to be a great option to replace the innings lost from Edgar Santana last year, and it's not just him that's competing for that role. So we'll also see Jesus Lorenzo competing for that role as well. He's another guy who sits in the upper 90s. So it's not like the Pirates are sending scrubs to the mound. These are big time talent, big time frame.
Yeah.
There is some durability issues surrounding Birdie because of the Tommy John surgery, but that happens. You move on from it, and you keep on going, and there's a good chance that he catches on and sticks, almost like Richard Rodriguez did coming into camp last year. He wasn't up right away, but Birdie's got to be on the roster opening day unless he's on the disabled list.
All right, so the next guy who I want to go over is Tom Koehler.
Yeah.
They haven't officially met with the MLB and said, we signed him. But from all the reports that I've heard and from seeing Tom on Twitter and
he's a Pirate.
Yeah, my friend who used to play for the Camden River Sharks, which is a team down near me and Josh, and I'm friends with him on Facebook. He knows Tom Kohler very well. So Tom Kohler is in the Pittsburgh Pirates organization.
Yeah, he's going to be rehabbing until the
he's
end
trying to get
of
back.
2019. So we
what
could
surgery
see him.
did he get?
I'm not even sure.
Because that's a long recovery time. Last time he was in the MLB was 2017. Started off with Miami. Horrible. 12 starts, 7.92 ERA. Came over to Toronto, settled down in a bullpen role, 15 games, 1 start with a 2.65 ERA. So another guy who is recovering from surgeries. I feel like a lot of people are recovering from surgeries this year. But
another big frame.
Yeah, big frame. How tall is he? 6'3", 235. He, an interesting name. I mean, I recognize the name from just, I guess, playing MLB The Show, because that's how I know a lot of these guys. But Tom, 32 years old, he could come in, possibly pitch at AAA. I don't see him making the big league. Well, he's still recovering, correct?
Yeah, he's probably a candidate to join the bullpen in September. So if they feel like he's a great candidate to be a part of like a postseason bullpen, they'll make the necessary changes for him to be an option for that. But yeah, he's out of the pen. He's a solid option. So. He'll be an interesting name to watch.
He had a rotator cuff issue, it looks like, that he did in spring training. And that's another thing that I wanted to briefly go over. The players who we are talking about now making the roster could always change. You could always see a guy come out of nowhere and make the roster because of injuries. I'm hoping for a injury-free spring training, but you never know. Somebody could do something here or there. Hopefully not, but it has to be a possibility.
Yeah.
So, do you want to go over the
fifth starters? Yeah.
Well, how about you talk about Brault first?
Yeah. Can you bring up our Twitter page? I had sent over an article from Rum Bunter.
I just got to log out here.
Yeah. So, Brault has been kind of...
You want me to just...
No, the other Twitter.
Yeah.
Brault has been working on getting his command kind of situated, and Brault's not he's not a soft tossing lefty. He's kind of like in that mid range with his fastball, and like when he throws the four seamer, he'll sometimes in a start be throwing 94, 95 on the gun.
Messages, okay.
Yeah. So, the key for him, like last year, he came out and there would be some outings where he would walk the ballpark.
His command was not there last year.
His walk rate was at a career worst 13.9%. So that, or 13.8%. That means that he was walking 13.8% of the batters that he faced. He's changed his arm angle, to make his pitches more difficult for opposing hitters to pick up on, and he's shortened his arm path to add velocity to his fastball and to add to his command of it. This is from Rum Bunter, who's the, let's see here, the author is Marty Leap. He published this 2 weeks ago, kind of going over what Brault's been doing this off season. That was something I wanted to ask him at Pirates Fest if I had the opportunity to talk to him, is what he had been doing to kind of take his game to the next level. So if Brault comes out in spring training, he's kind of in that mix. Right now, it seems like he's in that mix for the fifth starter. He's in that mix for a lefty relief role in the bullpen. So there's a lot of competition for these periphery roster spots for the Pirates, fifth starter, back end of the bullpen, everything like that. So ultimately, it's going to be the guys that really are able to put on a show in their side sessions, bullpen sessions, in-game action in spring training, and then the rest of the guys, of course, options and everything like that will play into it. And Brault's out of options, so pretty much has to make the roster.
Yeah.
If you want to be able to ensure that you keep him. He is a guy who, with his MLB performance to this point in his career, he could pass through waivers unclaimed and go to AAA. But if the Pirates feel like he's kind of checked all those boxes this offseason and he's at peak prime performance for a breakout, then they're going to be hesitant to designate him for assignment and be like, see ya. So he'll have a little bit longer leash than some of the guys they brought in externally. Tyler Lyons, Francisco Liriano being those two primary guys that I'm referring to that are his competition for both lefty relief and fifth starter roles. So with that said, the Brault's now in the mix, and we kind of outlined who else we have in the mix. Tyler Lyons is really, really far on the outside of that fifth starter conversation. So just to kind of tighten it up, we'll break it down to Stephen Brault, Francisco Liriano, the favorite, Jordan Lyles, and our favorite, Nicholas Kingham.
Yep. So with that being said, there are options, and there are left-handed options. It's just determining who deserves the spot more and who will benefit us more. From this point, I think that we're going with a 5-righty rotation with either Jordan Lyles or Nick Kingham having that 5 spot. And that point brings me into the rotation that was released today. So number 1 is Jameson Taillon. Number 2 is Nick Williams.
Trevor Williams.
Yeah, Nick Williams. Who is Nick Williams?
From the Phillies.
Yeah.
Trevor Williams.
Trevor Williams. There we go. Joe Musgrove, Chris Archer, and then the 5th rotation spot.
Yeah.
So right now, we're going to have a battle in spring training to see who does it.
Yeah.
And one player who I think of when I think of a battle for the 5th rotation spot is a few years ago, Juan Nicasio, who completely broke out in spring training and ended up making the roster. I believe he was a non-roster invite that year. So
I think he was signed to a big league deal.
Oh, he was?
Because they intended to have him in as a big part of the bullpen.
Okay.
But
we're going to have an old-fashioned battle here during spring training to see who gets into this spot.
Yeah. And just to break this battle down, Francisco Liriano factors in. Stephen Brault, he factors in even more than Francisco Liriano. But I think he has he's a slight, a half step behind Nick Kingham, who's a half step behind the guy who's currently the favorite, and that's Jordan Lyles. Jordan Lyles, though, does not have a hold on this spot by any stretch of the imagination. Jordan Lyles is being given this opportunity similar to the way Juan Nicasio was, because they believe he's deepened out his repertoire, added a pitch or two, added a different look. If he's able to do the sinker-slider, four-seam curve combination, incorporate that cutter into the mix, where they're gonna evaluate him to see if he's able to take his success in the Milwaukee bullpen from last year and take that into starts with him. Be able to change it up second and third time through the order. Of course, they're not looking for him to go deep into games, but if he could, they want to push him to his peak potential. This guy once was a top starting pitching prospect, and he broke into the big leagues as a starter, but his most recent success came in the bullpen, and the Pirates are giving him another look, and he'll be like thoroughly evaluated just to see where he's at, and if he's fallen short in any category, Nicholas Kingham is ready to step in and be the guy. As far as Nick Kingham goes, we've talked about him plenty on this podcast before.
We like him.
We like him, and he's a great candidate to get lefties out. Just to reiterate, the scouting report on Nick Kingham, he was a top prospect coming up through the minors. He was coming up through the minors at very much the same rate that Jameson Taillon was. Just like a year behind because of his draft status. He wasn't being pushed as hard as Taillon was. And then he ended up missing a whole bunch of time in the minors, similar to Taillon with the Tommy John, and then having some back issues here and there as he was coming back. So he had basically the same repertoire as Taillon. The scouting report on him was, hey, he's got an above average to maybe plus fastball. He's got an above average curveball. He has a plus changeup, and then all of a sudden he developed that slider last year that kind of helped him take his game to the next level. If I wasn't saying the names here, you might think I was talking about Jameson Taillon. Pretty much, Kingham, with his frame and everything that he brings to the table, is like a light version of Taillon, where you kind of flip-flop the changeup and curveball from a plus standpoint. Taillon has the plus curveball. Kingham has the plus changeup. So Taillon has the above-average changeup. Kingham has the above-average curveball. So the only difference is Kingham doesn't dial up the fastball quite as high as Taillon does. He's going to sit in the low to mid 90s. 95 is going to be like a 4 times a start velocity you see on the radar gun. You'll see a lot of 93. You'll see plenty of 92 and some 94 from him. So that's what sets him apart from Taillon. The fastball velocity isn't like overwhelming, where Taillon, like if he reared back, you can see him throwing 99, 100 if need be. Not that we ever want to see him doing that with his history, but Kingham is a guy who, he's got the finesse. He has some power. He showed the ability to strike out batters, and our guy Eno Saris from Fangraphs really likes him because when his pitches weren't getting hit last year, they were playing up. The league was swinging and missing at his pitches at a very high rate. All of his offerings. That's fastball, curveball, slider, changeup, and he did a pretty good job of locating. It was just sporadic bouts of wildness that we really haven't ever seen from Kingham. Like, wildness was never part of his personality throughout his career. I don't know if it was his body had just taken too much over the past few seasons with coming back from the injury. Yeah. Pitching in the big leagues, maybe nerves played a role here and there. Disappointment, losing his job after the Archer trade, but for people to be writing this guy off, it's a mistake, because this is a big time arm talent. Like, there's not a lot of pitchers in the big leagues that have the ability to do what Nick Kingham could come out and do this year. Anything to add on that?
Honestly, I think Kingham's probably going to get the 5th rotation spot. He's just a guy, in my opinion, who can handle it. I mean, you saw what he did in his MLB debut.
Calm, cool, and collected.
Yep, calm, cool, collected. If he can continue all that and really use his stuff, he could be an effective 5th starter. Not only get it, but actually do well in the role. And maybe Lyles gets it. Kingham goes to the bullpen for a little bit and shows that, hey, I deserved it, and they switch spots. Just time will tell. Spring training will tell. All their performances will tell what happens. And with that, it looks like we are out of topics for today's episode. I said that it might be shorter, but it actually isn't. We elaborated a lot. So we are going to be at spring training, like I said earlier, from the 20th to the 27th. Let me know if anybody's going to be there and want to maybe meet up, go to a game, whatever. We're just going to be hanging out. We have a schedule, but we have a couple free days mixed in there too.
Yeah, we're planning on meeting up with Anthony DiNardo from
North Shore 9.
North Shore 9. Shout out to North Shore 9. I know they love us over here at Pirates Corner. So.
Yep. All right. Well, as always, follow me on Twitter at Ryan from PC. Follow Josh on Twitter at Joshua Ruga. Thank you guys for listening to episode number 5.
Our main.
Yes. And our main account, which is Pirates_Corner on Twitter. So thank you all for listening to episode number 5. I'm not 100% sure who I'm going to put on the cover of this. Maybe Kingham. Probably Kingham.
Yeah.
But thank you for listening once again, and I will see you at spring training with another episode on the 23rd, I believe. See you guys then. Have a good one.
Peace out.